Okay, I think we can get it started. Ivan, do you want to start off?
Okay, so we're
Oh,
ready.
Ivan? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, can you hear me? Okay,
Yeah, pretty good. You
perfect.
can just start
Got
off.
it. Okay, amazing. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Our goal at HOA Simplify has always been to take complexity out of the community management. And today we're tackling some of the most critical structural and safety challenges facing communities across Southern California. When it comes to managing multi-family properties in HOAs here in California, keeping up with the structural safety regulations and safety mandates is just not a legal check mark. It's about protecting investments and the families who call these communities home. Today, we're incredibly fortunate to feature an organization that has become premier partner for property managers across the state. Based in Southern California, One Structural brings over 20 years of industry experience, specializing in everything from critical seismic retrofitting to SB 326, balcony inspections, waterproofing, and structural repairs. As a family owned and operated company, they pride themselves on clear communication and minimizing disruptions for residents. Please help me welcome from the team, David from One Structural team. David, welcome. Nice to meet you and good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, Ivan. Thank you for having me. Same to you, Simon. I appreciate that. The introduction was great. I think it's a spot on what we do. My name is David Tashroudian. I'm with One Structural Inc. We are an engineering and construction firm based here in Southern California, specifically in Tarzana. We've got a satellite office out in Berkeley, so we serve the whole state from Eureka down to San Diego and just a little bit south of there. And primarily, what we focus on is repair to structural systems of your HOA. The structural systems are going to be the foundation and the framing usually. And really, what we focus no, not focus on, but what we specialize in is seismic retrofit, so earthquake retrofit, particularly in those jurisdictions, meaning those cities that have mandatory seismic retrofit ordinances. So the state of California has various cities throughout up and down the coast that require seismic retrofit for particularly vulnerable buildings. Those are buildings that have a wood frame and a soft, weak, open face, typically known as soft story buildings. So San Francisco was the first jurisdiction to adopt an ordinance requiring a retrofit of these soft story buildings, and uh, that trend has trickled down from San Francisco all the way down here to where we are in Southern California, to various cities like Los Angeles, Beverly Hills, West Hollywood, Santa Monica, Pasadena. It's going to be coming to Long Beach and Torrance, and where else? And I think those are the only cities in the Southern California, Los Angeles County region that have mandatory seismic retrofit ordinances. There are a couple of other cities up north, like Fremont, San Jose is coming on board, Berkeley, and Oakland that also require soft story retrofit. So we specialize in that. In addition to the soft story retrofit we, specialty, we also specialize in balcony inspections and repairs under SB 326. So SB 326 is a statute that was passed statewide. So I should back up a little bit. Like I mentioned, the soft story seismic retrofit ordinance isn't a statewide ordinance. It's specific to local jurisdictions. So cities, not even counties. So individual municipalities and cities have the soft story retrofit ordinance, whereas the SB 326 inspection and repair requirements are statewide. So every multifamily building that has three or more dwelling units per building, that has these exterior elevated walkways, balconies, decks, porches, catwalks, essentially anything with a walking surface of that's 6 feet or more above the ground, and that's constructed of wood or primarily constructed of wood or wood-based components must be inspected, and depending on the classification of the building, uh, it must either be repaired if there is a safety to the public, or if there's just deferred maintenance, it must be repaired. So we specialize in that, and yeah, that's really what we like to do. We really enjoy getting in, analyzing structures, and performing repairs.
Amazing, David. Earthquake are always on top of my mind about when we have to like warning signs of a building. So, David, just a quick question. Like, for example, what would be like a warning sign that a building needs to be inspected or that needs intermediate intervention for any association member to see, okay, I'm looking at this. How can I identify that I need to do a proper review of my property?
Yeah, let's start with the seismic retrofit part. All right, if you live in a building typically that was built before 1978 and it has parking on the ground floor that's tucked under the units up above, and that building is built of wood, not concrete. Usually, those buildings were built to a code that didn't take into account seismic activity or seismic forces being applied to the building. So, those buildings are extremely vulnerable in the case of an earthquake to collapse. And we saw that in the Prieta. I think that's how you pronounce it. The 1989 Bay Area earthquake, we saw that where a lot of these soft story buildings collapsed. We also saw that down here in Northridge in 1994, where the epicenter was, not too far away from our office now, and several of the buildings in the neighborhood that we're in were red tagged because they failed. And tragically, a lot of people lost their lives because of the failed condition of the building. So if you know that your building was built before 1978, and again, if it has this tuck under condition where you're parking, underneath units up above, it's very likely that that building is a soft story building, and it's vulnerable to collapsing in the events of an earthquake. Particularly where these buildings are situated on or near fault lines. And the U.S. Geological Survey publishes maps of fault lines all throughout Southern California and the country for that matter, showing where these fault lines are, and you can use those maps to sort of gauge how far away your building is and how it would be affected in the events of an earthquake. So that's one thing. Another thing is that a lot of these buildings, a lot of apartment buildings, a lot of HOAs were built with not on a slab, but on a raised foundation. And the code for buildings built on a raised foundation in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s were to have anchor bolts every 4 feet, so every 48 inches. And these anchor bolts are essentially what keeps the wood frame of a building attached to the concrete foundation of the building. Oftentimes, that spacing is insufficient to withstand seismic and shear forces being applied to the building. So, when the seismic forces are applied to the building, a lot of times when you have these buildings that are built on a raised foundation, those bolts will shear off, they'll break off, and the building will shift off of its foundation, and the repair is extremely expensive. So that's not anything that you'd want to undertake as an association because it could cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, um, depending on the size of the building. So, not only were those buildings that were built on a raised foundation susceptible to sort of sliding off the foundation because the anchor bolts are spread too far apart, they're also susceptible to collapse if they have a cripple wall. So a cripple wall is a small wall that's built between the concrete foundation and the floor joists, the floor framing of your building. Oftentimes, those raised foundations and the cripple walls underneath them don't have the sufficient rigidity and stiffness to withstand seismic retrofit, or no, I'm sorry, seismic forces being applied to the building. So, without those strong shear walls, those cripple walls oftentimes will fail, again, resulting in extensive repair requirements. So that's what you'd want to look for if you live in a building with respect to seismic issues: cripple walls, foundation bolts, and tuck under parking. And you also want to look at the year that the building was built. If your building was built, after 1980 or so, you can rest assured that that the design for the building was took into consideration rather seismic forces. So it was almost inherently retrofit, although some jurisdictions do require retrofit of soft story buildings, even all the way up into the mid 90s. So that's what you'd want to look for. As far as balcony repairs or assessing the condition of a balcony for a homeowner, there's two real easy ways that you can do that, and I share this with all of our clients. So if you want to know how your balcony is holding up or what condition it's in, you want to look at two things. One is the surface, right? The surface is the waterproofing component. That's what keeps water out of the structural elements that comprise your balcony. So your balcony is comprised of load-bearing components. Those are the joists, beams, blocking, posts, and other structural elements. They're typically comprised of either timber or steel. And then there's a waterproofing component, which is the waterproofing system. And that could be any series of coatings, cementitious fluids, flashing, and paint. So if you can assess you can assess the waterproofing components visually. So if you look at your deck surface and you see cracks, there shouldn't be any cracks, right? If you see cracks, you know invariably 100% the water's passing through those cracks and into the structural components below, underneath the waterproofing system. And so I always tell people, listen, if you want to get an idea of what it looks like inside, take a look at the surface. That'll give you a really good sense of what underneath looks like. Also, if your balcony has, or your walkways for that matter, have stucco cladding, so there's a stucco soffit, meaning that it's covered in stucco on the underside, you can observe the condition of the stucco. If you see organic growth on the stucco, if you see staining on the stucco, if you see cracks in the stucco, and hey, when it's raining, if you go outside and you see water pouring through the cracks of the stucco on the underside, you know there's a serious problem with the load-bearing components inside, because those conditions, those defects in the exterior finishes indicate that water has passed through the load-bearing components and exited through the stucco. So that's another thing that people in an association can take a look at and make a real quick assessment on what the condition of their load-bearing components and their balconies are.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Okay. David, also regarding the SB 326 and SB 721, I know that these two deadlines are already passed. So all HOAs or property owners that have not completed their initial exterior inspection, what are they facing if they are not within the law right now?
Okay, let's address the two bills separately. So the first bill, SB 721, applies to apartment buildings. Now, you guys don't manage apartment buildings. Should I talk about that, or do you want me to just focus on the HOA facing bill?
I think we can just focus on, condos and townhomes.
Okay, so there are two bills that require inspection of the exterior elevated elements. One is SB 721 that applies to apartment buildings. The other corollary bill is SB 326 that applies to common interest associations. HOAs essentially. And the difference is that there's a mandatory repair obligation in the bill that applies to apartment buildings, whereas there is not a mandatory repair obligation for the bill that applies to HOAs, except that if the inspector determines there's a threat to the safety of the occupants during its inspection, then the HOA gets reported to local code enforcement agency, and the code enforcement agency may require that the HOA perform those repairs. So aside from that, there's really no repair obligation. However, there is an obligation in the statute, and SB 326 is codified in the California Civil Code at Section 5551. And that obligation is that the board must undertake or rather, the board has the obligation to engage a licensed professional to perform this inspection of the exterior elevated elements by January 1, 2025, and every 9 years thereafter. Or, if it was done in 2013, for example, you'd have 9 years from 2023, sorry. Um, the the liability for the failure to perform the inspection, I would imagine, is on the board or on the management company that hasn't advised their board to perform these inspections. So it's very important that the board undertakes um, or takes seriously its duty to the rest of the community to have the exterior elevated elements inspected by the deadline. And if they haven't done that yet, to get that done, just in case something happens and someone gets hurt. Can you imagine if you lived at an HOA, they didn't have the balcony inspections done by the time that it was required, and then somebody got hurt on a balcony that was defective, where the liability would lie? I mean, I don't think anyone wants to get in that situation. So it's very important. I think that not only do the management companies advise their clients to perform the inspection, but to actually get the inspection done and get it done with a reputable company that's not just going to say everything's a mess and force you to sort of get out there and do some unnecessary repairs. So I think
Yeah.
that's really where the liability is. As far as an agency of the state or the city enforcing the obligation to perform the inspection, I have not seen that yet for HOAs. I know the city of Los Angeles is starting to request that HOAs perform the repairs on those elements that were reported to the city, because again, the inspector has a legal duty to report to the local code enforcement agency those elements that fail the inspection, meaning those elements that pose an immediate threat to the safety of the occupants. Those are reported to the city. The city is now forcing the HOAs to do the repair. But as far as anyone going out there and forcing the HOAs in the state to perform the inspection, that hasn't happened yet, and there is no enforcement mechanism for that right now, so it probably won't happen. So it's on the HOA to do it, and it's on the management company, I think, to inform their clients of the requirement.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Awesome. David, should we start going through the material that
Oh yeah, I didn't realize we are gonna go through the material. I've basically gone through it all, but let's go through it. Would you like to? Do you want me to start it, or would you like to do that?
uh I think you can just share it on your end. If you
Okay,
if you
I
don't
can do
have it
that.
pulled up, I got it.
I got it right here. Here we are.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, bear with me for a second. Continue to share.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Are
Okay,
we
it's
there?
all good. Yeah,
Okay,
there you
so
go.
like I mentioned, David with One Structural, we do retrofitting and balcony repairs. This photograph that you see here on the left is us affixing a moment frame to a soft story building. That moment frame essentially absorbs all of the seismic forces that are applied to the building and dissipates them through the columns into the foundation elements. We can get through that. Um, a little bit about us. We've been in business since 2014. It's 2026 now, so just in May we celebrated our 12-year anniversary. It hasn't been easy being in business for that long. I'll tell you that. A lot of sleepless nights, a lot of difficulties, but we've persevered and we're not going anywhere. So what that really means is that we stand behind our work, and whenever we're engaged by an association to perform work, we always perform work to the highest standard because I want to sleep good at night. And so yeah, a little bit about us. And like you mentioned, Ivan, in your preamble, we're a family-owned business. I'm the licensed general contractor. I'm the owner. My wife works here with us. My kids are in the conference room right now. I picked them up from day camp so I can meet with you guys this evening. So yeah, we're all in. I like to think that we do honest and good work, and we stand behind our work. I certainly do. Our services, again, we're licensed engineers. So my partner is a licensed civil engineer in the state of California. We're registered with the state as engineers. So we perform all the engineering services for our repairs. So when we've got to perform a seismic retrofit on a building, we draw up the plans and we do the retrofit. When we've got to make repairs to an unsafe balcony, we draw up the plans and then we perform the construction. So we like to do everything in-house. It gives us a lot of control over the process, and it makes it more efficient for us when we're doing the construction. We do, like I mentioned, SB 326 inspections and repairs. We also have a project management division where we manage our own projects in-house. We do a lot of large-scale projects, like repairs of hundreds of units, hundreds of, well, I wouldn't say hundred, dozens of exterior elevated elements at a time. We project manage those in-house. We're also a painting contractor and a licensed plumbing contractor, so we can project manage repipes and whole community painting and facial repair as well. Decking and waterproofing, that sort of goes hand in hand with the SB 326 inspection and repairs. Concrete, masonry, and stucco, we can do small repairs and large repairs to those elements of a building. We do a lot of parking, garage leak, and drainage work. Like I said, we're licensed plumbers, so we've got a lot of experience in leak detection and drainage. Painting and coating, again, we're a C33 painting contractor. Plumbing, like I mentioned, foundation, and we also work on forensic investigation of construction defects. Balcony waterproofing. What's a waterproofing? Yeah, so you can have your balcony waterproofing repaired in three different ways. Well, I would say there are three different, not methods, but three different tiers of balcony waterproofing repair. And they go from least invasive to most invasive. The least invasive way to perform a repair is just applying a surface coat. So that's what we did here in this example. There's a 2510 series product where we take an old, slightly cracked deck surface, fill the cracks with epoxy, and apply a UV resistant sealant to the surface. And you can see that in this example here. The picture on the all the way left is the balcony before it was treated, and then you sort of see the balcony afterward in these other two photographs. Let's see here. Okay. I don't know if we have pictures here, but the other two waterproofing sort of methods are to one, apply a new cementitious fluid to the surface of the balcony. A cementitious fluid is a mix of Portland cement and acrylic liquid that's mixed on site and then applied over a fiberglass mesh that's adhered to the top of the balcony. That's not as invasive as the final step, but it's much more waterproof than the application of a UV coating. And then the final step is to remove the existing deck surface down to the plywood substrate and apply the cementitious fluid to a bare naked plywood with expanded metal lath. That's the most comprehensive solution. It's also the most invasive. It's the most time consuming, the most expensive, but that will not have to be ripped out in the next 20 years if it's maintained properly. Engineering and permits. If you guys have had any work done on your multifamily building, it should have been done with a permit. And oftentimes, in order to obtain a permit, you have to have a set of engineering plans. Cities now are requiring a set of plans even for waterproofing. So if there are no structural repairs being performed to a balcony, a lot of cities will require a set of waterproofing plans that have architectural details and specifications for the waterproofing system that's going to be applied. So we do all of that, and I highly, highly recommend that if you're going to do a waterproofing job on your balconies at your association, please do it with a permit, because those contractors that don't want to do it with a permit are invariably going to cut a corner or two that's going to lead to water damage down the line, and you don't want to be in that situation. Structural repairs. This is our favorite part. We love to frame. So whenever we open up a deck surface, so in order to perform the comprehensive repair, the tier 3 repair, you got to get everything down to the structural framing. And when you get down the structural framing, that's when you're going to find problems, if there are any problems. So we're experts at replacing plywood, replacing rotted joists, and things like that. You can see two examples in these photographs here of us doing that. This is a job where we had to rebuild the parapet wall of the balconies. This is a community right next to the ocean in Redondo Beach, and they had a significant amount of dry rot. So we removed the stucco from the parapet walls, and we fixed the framing, and we're doing new stucco. Plumbing drainage leaks. If you've got an association that's built on a concrete podium deck, So meaning if you go into your garage, you see a bunch of cinder blocks everywhere, and you look up, you see concrete. That's a concrete podium deck. You want to look to see if there's any efflorescence on either of the walls. And efflorescence is this white staining here, either on the walls here in the on these CMU walls. I mean, they're colloquially known as cinder block walls, but they're concrete masonry units. That indicates water has passed either from the backside of the wall or from the top side of the podium deck. And what that means is as water traverses through these concrete elements, it'll eat away at the steel rebar reinforcement. And that's actually what caused the Champlain Towers in Miami or somewhere in Florida, I think it was Miami, to collapse. There was a significant amount of delamination and spalling in the concrete, and exposed rebar that was deteriorated. So whenever you have spalling that exposes rebar to water, the rebar will rust, lose structural capacity, and eventually fail. So we perform these leaks and these leak detections and these repairs. Here's another example of water passing through concrete blocks. The concrete blocks were painted over, and you can see the water, which is retaining the earth, passing through and causing the bubbling here. Soft story retrofit. We talked about this, but this is an example of a soft story building. Tuck under building. So you see the parking is directly under the units, and the cars are parked, like I said, directly under the units. These openings constitute a weak open face and a soft story line. So these areas are susceptible to collapsing in the event of an earthquake. The steps for a retrofit. So what you're doing with the retrofit, is that you're affixing steel elements to the building that are encased in a concrete foundation. In this photograph, you can see the trenching process. People are opening up the concrete, opening up the face of the earth at the face of the soft story line in order to pour our concrete and set our steel columns. Construction defect. If you live in an association that's less than 10 years old, it's likely that if you're having problems right now, it's a construction defect, and you can hire or engage appropriately experienced lawyers to seek some sort of, I guess, retribution, or seek some sort of you can work with your lawyers to get the builders to pay for any issues that may have arisen in those 10 years. So if you've got a 10-year-old or less building and you're running into water intrusion problems and things like that, we can help your lawyers find out what the problem is and what the proposed solution would be. Well, this slide talks about the types of defects that you might come across. There are patent defects and there's latent defects. Patent defects are defects that are visible and discoverable by reasonable inspection. There's a 4-year statute of limitations on that. Then there are latent defects that are hidden until years later, like water intrusion behind stucco, below grade structural issues. You have a 10-year statute of limitations on those. So if you're experiencing any of those issues, we'd recommend always that you engage with construction defect counsel. Okay, here. So this is an example of how we perform an SB 326 or SB 721 inspection. We drill little holes into the underside of the deck surface, and we observe the condition of the joists. You can see a lot of staining here on the underside. That staining indicates the water's passed through and it's exited through the stucco. Not a good sign here. For condominiums, here's a timeline. You've got to inspect every 9 years, with the first inspection having to be performed by January 1 of last year. It must be inspected by a licensed engineer or architect, and the report will go to the code enforcement agency if there are any elements that were inspected that the inspector deems a threat to the safety of the occupants. Post-inspection. Oh yeah, so this is an post-inspection. We recommend oftentimes destructive testing, where you can observe the condition of the framing. You can see here the deteriorated framing. Project management, I talked a little bit about that. We manage your projects from start to finish, even if we're not the contractor. If you need some help overseeing projects, preparing a bid, reviewing a bid, preparing a scope of work, we can do that. And yeah, that's it as far as our presentation. If you got any questions, feel free to reach out. You can find us on social media at One Structural. You can call us here at the office, visit our website, onestructural.com. We're happy to help. Yeah, so I guess I'll open up the floor to questions.
Yeah. Well, first of all, David, thank you so much for, coming on board and going through SP326. I think, since maybe like 2 years ago, or maybe like a year ago, people started panicking because because SP326 was such a huge slap in the face for all of the condos, especially like the smaller ones, because it is another compliance checklist they need to check off. So there's certainly a cost to that. And I love that you guys kind of do like a complimentary like a site visit of inspection for all of your clients. So I thought that's super neat in terms of what you guys do for that service. Before we kind of open up to the floor and everything, I just kind of want to get your quick insight on I guess what are some common mistakes that you've seen across the communities? I mean, you've shown some great examples there, right? Like the, spots in terms of the balconies, and I guess what are some educational pieces that you might want to just to tell all of our board members
Yes.
about their balconies.
Yeah. Don't hire a handyman to do structural repairs, right? Do the structural repairs with a permit at all times and do it with a plan also. That's really the main takeaway from all of this. If you're going to do some repairs to your balconies, make sure it's done with a permit and make sure that the people doing the work are appropriately licensed. I've seen too many instances where associations have had to redo work because it was done
Mhm.
improperly in the first instance.
For sure. While the board members are hopefully typing up their questions. Ivan, do you have some questions that you can ask David?
Oh, yes, David, just one question. In your experience, what would be like the most common construction defects you encounter in the associations that you visit?
The most common construction defects that I encounter in the associations I that we visit are going to be water intrusion related
Mm,
around windows, glazing, deck surfaces, improper installation of door pans, stuff like that.
Got it.
It's really going to be water intrusion based. So if you see water on the interior of your unit, it's going to be a problem.
got it.
Right.
Okay. Any other board members have questions to David? Because I have a lot of questions to, ask David. I guess one of them, David, is um, what is the best advice for all the communities out there that haven't done any of the SB326 work?
Oh, just get it done. Get it done and make sure that you get it done um, by an inspector that has the requisite experience and that's not just going to flag everything or that's not going to do a thorough job. Make sure that you're having your load-bearing components looked at visually, whether it's through destructive testing or with a borehole and a bore scope camera.
For sure. And I think we had a, self-managed community on board last year who did not do SP326 and they were scrambling to get it done because there was resale going on and they wanted to, have that deck the balcony inspection report. So things like that, just not being compliant with code, especially you know, a sensitive matter such as SP326, I think it's really, crucial for all the board members to know. Um, Let's see. No questions, guys, huh? David, if you don't mind, I think we can end early if no one has other questions. Do you have any other, I guess, final guidance to our board members and communities?
No final remarks except that again, permits, permits. Make sure you do your repairs with a permit, and that'll be it.
Okay, awesome. Well, David, thank you so much for your time. I'll send some HOAs over if they never done SP326 on your way. Yeah, guys, feel free to reach out to me if you want to get in touch with David at One Structural. I'm more than happy to connect you guys to David for his services. And yeah, thank you so much, David.
Great, guys. We'll talk soon. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Talk soon. Bye bye.